Exactly. Do you have a sex addiction? Like all these different things are going to come to my mind, right? So as much as body count doesn't matter when it comes to men, it's still going to be a question in my mind about like what was going on in your past, why your number is so high, and why you couldn't control yourself, or like why you weren't making better decisions.
Could have been an adult entertainer.
Okay, great. And then in that case, it's not somebody that I would. I wouldn't have the first date, or the second date at that point, right?
But, okay, but when would you think that information would be even told to you?
Normal Bros, and we back at it again. First of all, I'm gonna need you to tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a mother effing friend to follow and subscribe to your boys. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other podcast platforms as well. You can catch us on YouTube and TikTok. That's Far From Normal Podcast. Make sure you type that into a search engine and see the boys on those clips. We got everything for you. We got the website, www.farfromnormalpodcast.com. We got all the links up there. Make sure you check it out. Of course, YouTube. We're on Instagram as well. That's far_from_normal_podcast. Check it out. You already know. It's your boy Fuzzy Vision. You know, I see the world clear. And, you know, I see the future. And the future is bright. You already know. Fuzzy Vision with 2 N's. If you have any likes, dislikes, rebuttals, or you want to be on the podcast, hit your boy up. Sonny, drop the handle, baby.
You already know what it is. It's your boy, Sonny Frames. You can catch me on the gram at Sonny, SONNY, Frames, double S at the end. Make sure when you do check out my Instagram page, check out my stories, because I usually post a lot of stuff that has to do with motivation, inspiration, chasing your dream, and execution. So let's not forget, any dream that you're trying to achieve, the only way that you'll ever achieve it is through execution and putting a plan to motion. So make sure that you don't just stay in the dream world, and make sure you make it a reality.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
And Fuzzy, let's get him.
All right, so we haven't had a female guest in quite some time on the podcast. I think the reason for that is because a lot of females don't want to necessarily say their true opinion and how they look at certain things, because I personally think that when it comes to women and men, I think women tend to worry more about opinions than men would, per se. And that brings us to our new guest that is here.
Let's get it.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Could you tell the viewers who you are and what brought you here today?
For sure. So my name is Lolita, lovely Lolita. So I host a show called Singles of Toronto. Again, it was all just about learning about the pulse of dating in Toronto, talking about love, dating, sex, and relationships, to really answer the question, is dating in Toronto really that trash? Like, that's where it all began, really. And so what I did is kind of invite people on to, I asked them a few just qualifying questions to understand what type of person they're kind of looking for, and in hopes that they kind of find someone and get connected. And in addition to kind of connecting people, we also had a question of the night. So again, just delving into different topics around those things to really understand what people are talking about, what people are thinking, and what people are feeling around dating.
Is it a matchmaking show, or are you trying to like match people together based on answers?
Correct. Not based on answers. It's just like them kind of sharing some of the qualifying information. So I would just ask basic things like, what type of person are you looking for? How much money do they need to make? Would you date someone with kids? Kind of basic things. What's the last thing that you learned? When's the last relationship that you were in, and what did you learn from that relationship? So again, just for them to kind of get an understanding, maybe person who is listening, and be like, okay, I kind of like this person, and kind of jump in their DMs and kind of start the conversation that way.
That's interesting. Have you watched that new show that everyone's raging about, Pop a Balloon to Find Love?
Oh, for sure.
Have you seen the Toronto version one?
I have not. I did not know there was a Toronto
Yeah, that Toronto version.
Okay, I definitely have to see that. I will definitely tune in after
Actually,
this,
sure. Actually, my brother showed me it. I didn't actually know about it, but on social media, if you follow certain accounts, they'll come up, right? Okay. And one of the accounts that we were following, it showed it, and some of them were not as good. I think it was poorly done in terms of like camera angles.
Oh no, okay.
But then, and they didn't have as much women. But then there's some videos that were actually good.
Yep.
And yeah, that style, I think it's a cool style to do, but I think the hardest part about that style is getting the candidates, yeah,
sure.
just to come in and just you know, to actually make something happen from that. I think in those other places like in the States, they have a large pool of women to choose from, and they could get them together, assemble them really quickly. And
Well, I think in the States you can do in-state flights. Like you can fly to
Yes.
somewhere
Right.
cheap.
That too.
Like you
Right.
can go $100,
Yes.
120,
Yeah, it's a
150
lot
to go
easier, more
from
accessible.
Houston to Arizona. Like it's a lot more
Yeah.
cheaper. And obviously in Toronto to get from here to Vancouver, here to Montreal,
All
these are
expensive.
expensive flights. So.
Yeah.
It's easy. They have a bigger pool because they can have people come from different parts of of America to come on the show. But when it comes to that type of dating, because obviously that's new. Even with what you're doing with the singles of Toronto, and is the dating scene really that trash? That's a new thing. Like talking about it, at least, right? Having that conversation and even asking people like qualifying questions of like how much money. Like these weren't topics before. These weren't as important of topics. Because think, a lot of people, if we look at a generation before us, they would have got together with somebody when they were younger. So you would not have the idea of somebody making six figures and doing that and doing this. Everyone's in their progression,
Right.
and everyone's waiting on potential or waiting on security, like they're building. But this day and age, we don't want to wait for building, right? We want a fully developed house. So when it comes to dating, and there being so many options in the field now with online dating and stuff like that, do you think that makes it tougher on the woman in terms of pickiness, or do you think it makes it easier because the option pool is a lot bigger?
I think it makes it tougher. I think that because we're on social media and we think that everything is so easily accessible and people are putting out a version of their lives that looks perfectly polished, that's what we're seeing, right? So it's easy for us to gravitate towards someone on Instagram that kind of is showing their best selves, right? Versus when we actually meet that person and then we talk about the nuances, like we're talking about some of those nuances of what actually maintains and sustains a relationship, right? And that's a different story. So I think the dating apps, things like that, it makes it a lot harder when we're going through all these different options. And again, people are presenting their best selves on these dating apps, to be honest, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So what's your thoughts on the Toronto dating scene? Like, do you feel like it's hard to navigate through it? Have you been through situations where you're like, you know what, I'm not really into Toronto guys? Because I know that's the rhetoric too. I don't want to date a
certain
Toronto
stigma,
man.
Toronto man.
Listen, that's an interesting question. And I think, again, going back to that original question that I was asking, like, is dating in Toronto specifically so trash? Because for me personally, I've dated outside of Toronto, you know, so I think I have a bit of experience to kind of share on that. And I think that it goes down to, and I really, really believe this, dating is what you make it, right? Because I find that if you're going to go into it thinking negatively and thinking, okay, everyone's going to be trash, everyone's going to be a liar, a cheater, a thief, then you're going to kind of run into that, right?
Yes.
Versus if you go into it with an open mind, open heart, and you're just like, you know what, maybe just having an idea of what you want and what the boundaries that you're not kind of going for, you're gonna end up finding what you're looking for, right? And again, no one's gonna be perfect, and I think that's one of the things too. I think when you're talking about we want people to like kind of already come packaged, I think we're all in this, and it's not just women, I think men as well. We're all looking for like perfection, right? And the minute that something is not perfect, that's when we start to shy away. Yeah.
That's right.
I think, so what that, like, I don't even know if men are looking for perfection per se. You know why I say that is because men typically don't make the choice of the woman that they get. The woman chooses them rather than the man choosing the woman for the most part, because even when you look at dating apps, who's getting the more likes? Is it the men or the women? From my understanding with my homegirls, the way their inbox is looking, that's not how mine's
No,
looking.
ours is looking. And
even
if you look at relative
Yes.
attractiveness, like
Yes.
as a guy being a certain attraction level and as a woman being a certain attraction
they
level.
could be average and they could still be outranking me for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But we have to go back to the whole thing of like we talked about certain, what am I trying to say? Certain kind of rules that have been put in place for men versus women, right? And it's just a known thing that men are the chasers, men are the hunters, men are the ones that pursue the women. So by nature, a woman's gonna have more men in her DMs being pursuing her versus a man, because women don't necessarily do that. And I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Do women actually jump into your DMs? And if a woman does jump into your DMs, is that considered like, do you think she's a thirsty woman, or is that something that you're kind of you would invite?
I'll speak on this. So I've been in like many situations where DMs come through every here and there. I think in those scenarios, it's never as direct as like say a man would approach a woman like via online.
Okay,
So a man approaching a woman via online, unfortunately, he's dealing with a long list of guys ahead of him that have messaged this girl telling her how beautiful and gorgeous and things they would buy for her and bring her here and there, right? So you're gonna have a lot of people doing that. I know this because I've had girlfriends that have showed me their DMs.
Yeah.
So I need to just go off my own anecdotal situation. And I've known like homegirls that obviously had DM girls I was talking to that tell me guys are in the DM. If they're especially in the field, they're gonna have DMs flooded with different options. Now the problem, well, I was talking about that with the women. With them, with the guys, having like women come in their DMs, it's that they do it subtly. So they might maybe like a bunch of your stories or like pictures randomly, random times, or comment on certain things that you do. You have to be active though. Typically, you have to be active on your social media or whatever. And if they do message you, or say you're on a dating app and they message you, because that happens as well. So, and they message you, what I've noticed in those scenarios is that you're less likely to get the woman that approaches you. That's from my own experience. So I don't even look at women that try to give me signals and stuff as a better or an easier way to get with that woman, even if she is interested, because sometimes it throws you off when you're not pursuing her and she's kind of throwing you hints. It throws you off in how you're trying to operate, because you're not operating in the mindset of
I think it depends on how they approach.
It depends on how they approach, because you usually thought, oh, I pursue you and I like you, but now it's like you like me, so you feel like you're in a leverage point, so you should have things come to you a little bit easier. But then you tend to lay off on the gas because you're like, well, she came to me, so that means she's feeling me. But it's different for women, because women can feel you, but doesn't mean they're gonna turn around and pursue you. So just because they threw you a bone doesn't mean they're gonna do all the legwork when it comes to actually facilitating a date, a meetup, or whatever the case may be. So I think that sometimes that will throw off a guy, and he might not even pursue that woman just because it threw him off a little bit in terms of how he's going to approach it. And then some guys also know when a woman approaches them, they kind of feel like, well, like in the sense that I didn't need to work hard for it, so I don't care if I lose it type of thing, right?
Well, even to wrap that up, I think the easiest way to put it is that for a guy and for women that are trying to talk to a guy, they still have to be in their feminine. They have to, they can't move with a masculine personality trait where you're trying to pick up a guy as if the guy's trying to pick up her. So they have to just kind of leave a hint, and then that guy needs to be smart enough to see that hint or think it's a hint, and then go into his masculine and try and pick up the woman, just so that he still feels like he was the hunter. Because if he doesn't feel like he's the hunter, he's not going to pursue, because it feels like he's in a feminine role he's playing. He's not playing the masculine role, and that kind of emasculates him, so he's not going to go down that road. But going back to on your end, and when it comes to men and dating apps, and what are women typically looking for? Because I'm under the understanding, and we were talking about this earlier, I'm under the understanding where women typically say that I want something that can last. I want something. I want to build on something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, first guy, they're in a relationship. They sleep with them. I'll give you that. You get a pass on that. You know, depending on what you're doing, you get a
one
pass. You know, I'm just saying. The
That's
first
it.
one, you get a pass. I get it. You're in love, puppy love. I don't know what age you guys started. It's your first guy. You know, you lost your virginity to him. I get it.
Wow.
It's understandable. Okay. Or that didn't work out. Okay. You know, you were young. You didn't understand what was going on. The relationship didn't work out, but you learned from it. Okay, that's great. Now we get to the second guy. Okay. Yeah, it was working out, this, that, blah, 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 vice versa. You know, it was happening. And then all of a sudden, it went to abrupt end. Okay, so from the two experiences, I'm thinking, okay, you have enough knowledge to understand what you are looking for the third guy, and that's where we're gonna end it right there. But now, if you get to the third guy, or now it's not even a relationship, now it's a situationship, and then it's the fourth guy, and then it's the fifth guy, and then the numbers are now
Going
catastrophic.
Okay.
But nobody told us what the numbers are. Now it's catastrophic.
It's just at a catastrophic level. We don't know
Yeah,
what the
exactly.
level
We
is,
don't
what
know the
number
exact
is,
number.
but it's just catastrophic.
Yeah, we don't know the numbers yet. But
Yeah.
now
Indefinite.
it's indefinite, and then the woman is gonna say that, well, I was in there looking for love. How
In
many
every
times?
scenario.
How many times can we be saying that we're looking for love? And also, the follow-up question is, how many relationships do you have to be in to say that you understand a relationship? Or what makes a person just a bad dater?
That's a great question, and I think that I want to say it's unfair. It's an unfair question, if you will, because after you're as a grown person, right?
Okay.
We're not talking about like high school. Maybe
Yeah,
in
we're
high
talking
school.
about-
We're
okay,
talking
grown.
about your grown
Okay,
people.
yeah.
After one relationship, like I said, you're like you're saying, you know, you went through it, stuff happened, you learned some stuff, great. Then the second time, same thing. You took those things that you learned from that first relationship into the second one, so now it's going a little bit better. But then again, for whatever reason, and there's again a number of circumstances that can come up, and we can talk about some of those circumstances that would make the relationship unsuccessful or not carry on from there. So at that point, it's not like you just have to stop living your life, right? Your life is ever changing. You're going to always be evolving. You're always going to be learning. So I don't think there's a specific number that you can say like, you know what, now that I'm at my fifth relationship, I understand all there is to know about relationships, because like I said, they're very subjective. What works for one person is not going to work for another person, right? So I think it's all about when you're getting into a relationship, it's not about thinking about, okay, what's good for relationships. It's about what works for you and this person specifically, and finding those things out.
So what's your thought on like modified relationships in terms of women being in a different kind of relationship? Because if we're talking traditionally, obviously our generation is not going the traditional way.
Right.
We're doing, like I said, we have like dating apps, all these different hookup kind of culture and shit like that going on, and whatever, single mom, baby daddy, this, that. We have a lot of that going on. So as a woman, again, if, say for example, I'd say this much. What rules are really in place then when it comes to being with somebody? Because obviously it's going to be based on the individual, but you're going to have individuals that draw the line, right? There's going to be people that draw the line at certain points. And I think this is where people disconnect from sometimes the shit we say.
Okay.
There's people that draw the line in any facet of life. There's
Right.
people that draw the line on certain
Of
things.
course.
You only can commit one crime and then you can't get this job no more.
Right. It's okay,
You see what
fair
I'm
enough.
saying? There's
lines
no,
for a
I made a
reason.
mistake when
For
I was
sure.
18. Yeah, sorry, done.
Right.
You're finished. Can't be a cop. Can't go to America. Can't. There's certain things that happen, consequences for certain actions. But what I see with just dating in general and how the mentality is, it's like we have this idea that, okay, we can do whatever we want in our past as long as we're genuine now, and as long as we're on the right path today, all should be forgotten. So how
Or
much
forgiven.
are forgiven? So in your opinion, if you're dating somebody that has a storied past, that either was, had a lot of women that they were dating or lots of people that they were involved with and all that type of stuff, where would you draw the line when it comes to, you know, picking a guy. If you knew the guy was a promiscuous guy, you knew he was maybe, say, like a club promoter, a job that is around a lot of women and that type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line? Like, before making it serious, where do you draw the line on his past behavior?
That's a great question. And I think for me personally, it's, like you said, talking about promiscuity, like for men, that's not really the conversation, right? Can't really, that's out the window. That doesn't matter. For me, where I draw the line is more around like legal issues.
Okay.
Yeah. So say there's some type of legal issues. And again, it's all about a conversation about what those legal issues are. But if like you're not willing to disclose those legal issues right up front, that's a huge red flag for me. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So those are some of the things, like that's where I would draw the line. And in terms of like, and if we're going to talk about like his relationship status,
say relationship status and like that type of stuff.
If we're going to talk about that, again, it goes down to like legal issues. So if there was any type of domestic
Domestics,
situation, that's what I'm thinking about. Because again, for men in this society, it doesn't matter. Men pretty much can sleep with 1,000 billion women.
But not to say what the society is.
Not even
Say
only
your
the
own
society,
personal opinion as a
Okay, fair
woman.
enough.
Do you judge men off that? Like off your own opinion, not off what society's going to judge
that's
it
a
at.
great-
You as a
that's a great
woman, how do you
question.
see promiscuous men?
That's a great question. I think for me personally, I think that if there's a man that has like a really, really astronomical body count, I'm at that point starting to judge his character and his mindset,
What's
right?
astronomical?
And again, I think we're
What's the
like,
figure
I don't
on
think we
that?
can get into figures.
Well, give us a
the thing.
plus,
That's the
like
thing.
this
We need,
plus
like, the
this.
parameters.
Give us a
We need, like, some
parameter.
parameter.
Okay, just to say like
Above
maybe,
50 or below 50?
Like,
No, I'm talking in the hundreds, like
Okay,
in the
so
hundreds.
in the
Yeah,
hundreds.
if it's in the hundreds,
Okay.
right? Then it's like, what was going on in that time? Like, were you just like running the streets? Like, were
Sir,
you using
you have a
protection?
problem.
Like, right, exactly. Do you have a sex addiction? Like, all these different things are gonna come to my mind, right? So,
Yeah.
as much as body count doesn't matter when it comes to men, it's still gonna be a question in my mind about like what was going on in your past, why your number is so high, and why you couldn't control yourself, or like why you weren't making better decisions.
Could have been an adult entertainer.
Okay, great. And then
So-
in that case, it's not somebody that I would. I wouldn't have the first date or the second date at that point, right?
But
Yeah,
okay,
that's
but
true.
when would you think that information would be even told to you, anyways?
Great question, because this is one of the questions that I asked on my show about like at what point does somebody disclose like if they have an OnlyFans, like if it's on the first date,
Yes.
is that like do you run away automatically, or would you want them to tell you on the first
I've
date?
heard this on first dates.
Right? Oh, and how do you feel? Because me personally, I think it needs to be out there.
I
Like,
think-
especially something like that.
Well, when I've heard it, you don't know what the content is. So
Fair enough,
the
fair
context of them having OnlyFans is just them having OnlyFans. You don't know how successful they are,
Right.
how public they are, how much they promote it,
Right,
who they're
right.
promoted to. You're in
What
the
activities they're doing on
unknown
there.
of this. So,
What activities they're doing while they're on
while
there.
they're on there. But
right?
here's the thing, like, do you have the right to ask for the account and see what's going on? If
think
you're
that-
just
at that
dating
point-
them, well, my whole thing is if
Yeah.
you're just dating them, you have no say. This is the point I'm trying to say. Like,
Okay.
you have the option to walk away from the scenario. So
Right.
I think you should say it, so you give that person the option. But at the end of the day, you don't know the nuances of that if you're not in that field. So you don't know exactly what it is they're doing. So a lot of the time when we date, we keep things in the dark. Cause why? Because at the end of the day, a lot of people don't judge someone off of one decision. Like there's multiple things that add up. So say a person has OnlyFans. Well, you see how she moves and what kind of person she is too. Sometimes people will give that leeway. Just like I've seen on the Pop a Balloon show, they had like strippers on, and you would think typically guys would just pop it because like I don't want to date a stripper, like but guys kept the balloon until certain things she said. Then they just didn't like her personality wise, but that was different. But it's tough, like I said, when it comes to. I'm losing my train of thought here.
Well,
Go ahead.
No, I was
No,
gonna
that was my
ask
train
you.
of thought, sorry.
I was just gonna ask you, like, when it comes to men, where do you think we're too harsh on? Because I feel like women have a big issue with certain opinions that men have.
Yes.
So I really want to understand from a woman's point of view, what is it that you guys are like, no, this is just a little too much for me.
That's I think, you know what? And I think you kind of alluded to a little bit of it here in the conversation. And it's like, after, like, a lot of times men are saying that after a woman, a woman has had 2 partners, that's it. She's washed up, she's done. Some men are saying, like, after a certain age, she's washed up, she's done. So I think that is a part of it, right? They're saying after a woman has a certain amount of kids with a certain amount of men, she's done, right? And I think that's so harsh and it's so final, and it's not like it's not a fair point of view, right? Because like I said, we still have to live our lives, whether we had 2 kids in the past with, 2 different baby fathers. We still have to live our lives, and we're supposed to just stop living, stop loving, stop looking for love, stop wanting to connect with people.
Well, I'd say this much because I'll say this much. It's funny that you mentioned like fairness and stuff like that. Do you think men and women are treated fairly in the dating scene?
No.
So who has more options, do you believe? A woman or a man?
Who has more options in the dating scene?
Overall, yes.
I think men have more options.
Men have more options.
Yeah, I think men have more options.
So, and why is that? What makes you think a man has more options than a woman? And let me remind you one thing. Women are more of a commodity in our society than men are. Mind you, men go pay for prostitutes. How many women are doing that same thing?
Well, it's a different.
But
what's the double standard? It's you know what I mean?
Well, yes, of course. But I'm just trying to say, who has more options?
And I think honestly, in my opinion, I think that men have more options because, to me, and I don't know if this is just from my lens or from the circle that I'm in, whatever you want to say, but it's like I think that men. There's a lot more women wanting to throw themselves at men.
At which kind of men? Because not all men are it's not equal along the boards. So what men are we talking about?
A lot of the time, I don't know. It's just this is the known thing. Men are out there. They have 2, 3 girls they're talking to.
But
you know what I mean?
Which type of men are we talking about?
Hey, you know what? You can go from average men all the way up to high earning men. I think that period point blank, when you're a man, you're gonna have.
So you think average men are racking up bodies?
I'm not gonna say they're racking up bodies. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah, but if we're saying option wise, what I'm saying is, it's okay if you're thinking, men, first of all, their options go as far as they're willing to take the option in terms of they have to take the woman out and do all this extra stuff. A woman doesn't have to take out a guy to say sleep with them or have a they don't have to put in that type of work. So if you're saying guys have more options, well, they have to spend so much more time trying to find the girl that's willing to go out with them and all of that. So they lose options by all of the time they have to spend on one single woman. It's not like they can yes, every man can have options, but out of those options, how many are successful compared to the failures? And that's what I mean when we're talking about options. That's what I'm talking
about in terms of viable options. Let's talk about viable options. I think that for men, there's a lot more viable options than there are for women because.
Viable in what sense?
So women are looking for men that, again, if we're talking about, some women are looking for men who are high earning men, right? Okay. There's not a lot of men that are high earners, especially here in Toronto, right? So that eliminates that. When you're talking about, in terms of looks or even social status or even their marital status, whether they've been divorced a bunch of times, whether they have kids of their own. Again, I think a lot of the conversation with those things are surrounded around women. And if a woman has children, then that's X'd out. If a woman has this, then she's X'd out. And we never talk about what the men are bringing, the baggage that the men are bringing to the table. I think that's a conversation that needs to be had as well.
Well, the men typically are the ones that have to they have to, first of all, court the woman. That's first and foremost.
Yeah, for sure.
Foremost. The woman's not courting the man. And then he has to go against all the other competition that is out there vying for the same woman. Right? And then you have to factor in that he has to be somewhere good financially to even pursue that woman. Right? And then he has to have certain genetics, qualities, to even be viable for that woman. So he has a lot of hurdles to go over before he even has that chance with that woman.
And that's
On
not
the
even a
opposite
gorgeous
end,
woman. That's a
this is
normal
average.
woman.
This is an average woman. An average woman is able to do a lot of stuff to make up for her lack of genetics. Makeup is
So that's what I mean, though. That's what I mean by women would have less options, right? Because, like you said,
But,
women
yeah.
can make up for an average woman can make up for all those things by adding makeup, all these different things. Whereas men, like the men just come as they are with their looks and their money and
but that's not an easy feat.
No, but
Their-
I get
their-
what she's trying to
peace.
say, but I believe it's incorrect. I get what you're trying to say. You're, in my opinion, this is how I'm hearing it.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Women are picky. That's literally what I'm
Yes.
hearing. It's like women are pickier, so their pool is smaller than a guy, because a guy will deal
we
with
have to be
a lot
pickier.
less. But that's why you're saying that, men have more viable options, because
yes.
you're just thinking, a man can take any woman.
Okay, true. Fair enough. You know
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, so you're saying like a man can deal with
I was
any
alluding to that,
woman,
for sure.
but men don't want to deal with any woman. That's the difference.
That's just
like,
what's
True, but it's
given
still
to
the
us.
fact, but it still
We're
remains
open
the
to
yeah,
question
so that's
was
why
who
she's
has
saying the
more
option, the
options.
option
Okay.
situation. But
Yeah.
that's why I beg to differ there, where I'm like, no, you have options, but you canceled out half your options.
Yes, you just erase them.
And
Yes.
then that's the thing where if you canceled out those options, then it goes back to the guys not really having as much options as you think, because the best guys available, all the girls they can get. So those guys can get all of the girls that are vying for that type of guy. Those guys have the most options. But now if you talk about guys that don't hit the threshold of finances, genetics, good looks, good
Social
personality,
status.
social status, all of those guys are falling below the wayside. And who sees those guys, right? So you're saying that pool is still strong and they still have options. It's like, yeah, but the option they want is not what's there for them no more. All the best girls are with the top guys.
Yeah.
We're now just procreating with whoever is left.
Whatever's
right?
left. So basically,
And
they're
you
picking
women
up-
are saying
like
you don't
that.
want to
It's
do
not
that,
like that.
but the women are saying they don't want to do that.
Yes.
So then these guys are trying to go for the average women, thinking like we're equally yoked. Me and you, we belong together. And she's like,
But the woman's like,
get the hell out of here.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
looking
no,
for.
sir.
Pause.
I'm looking for Prince Charming and that's driving the Lexus and whatever it is that comes with that. I'm looking for that type of man. So like I said, those women aren't going to be as lenient on guys, even if they have situations too. Like if he's the average guy and then he has extra situations, like he has a kid, he has this, he has that, they're not going to lean towards those guys. And the same guys that are average guys aren't going to lean towards women that have those things, because they're going to say to themselves, that's a deficiency I don't want to deal
But see,
with.
now that's the situation. We're all average people, okay? Let's talk about, because I mean, I don't have the facts and figures about like earners in Toronto, men versus women and how much they earn.
Yeah.
But just based off some of the conversations that I had, let's talk about finances, because that was one of the bigger things that came out with one of the things that I kind of learned after some years of doing the show, is that the landscape in Toronto, finances, when it comes to men and finances, they're not so willing to pay 100% of the bills. You know what I mean? They're not so willing to splurge on a girl. They're not so willing. They're like, they'll take the girl on
This
a date.
is a cultural
here and there.
thing.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing.
Okay.
That's one thing I understood. And I don't know, I really tried to like dig a little bit deeper and to find out exactly what it is, but I think maybe it's just the nature of it's expensive to live here in
that's what I was
Toronto.
gonna say.
Like it's honestly really
It-
expensive.
it's not only that, it's a cultural thing here that's not been taught to people. It's
Right.
everyone's
Yeah.
come
It
from
goes back
different
to that.
cultures,
I think it
and
goes
we're
back
all
to
a lot
that.
of us are first generation. Like
Right.
your parents weren't born here, our parents weren't born here,
Right,
so
right.
you get different traditions. So our family is more traditional. It can be the mother or the father making, like, not traditional in that sense, but both are working people.
That's more traditional to us.
Yeah, that's
For-
tradition. Would be
Yeah,
traditional
yeah,
to us, like
yeah.
almost like a 50-50 kind of
Exactly.
relationship,
Yeah, for
right? Obviously, certain things are leaded by whoever, the father, mother, whatever. But what I'm saying is, you're used to that. But now everything's modified. It's not the same like how it used to be. So. Guys aren't gonna grow up in our generation of millennials. They're not growing up knowing that, oh, I'm gonna pay 100% of the bill with the girl that I
Yes.
went to the same university with, that we're making the same money. Now I have to pay her 100% of my bill.
Okay,
It's
a
like, you're
different
not better
landscape,
than
for
me.
sure.
We're
Yeah,
the
for
equal.
sure.
But again, if you have this mentality that I have done this and you have done the same as me, so therefore you're not equally, or I need someone equal to or better, it makes you lose a lot of options, because at the end of the day, like we said, the numbers are here for what people make in Toronto.
Yeah.
It's not a rich city. It's not LA. So people don't have that type of money that people are kind of requesting. Now, I don't know in Toronto if the rhetoric's the same as in America. Like, oh, you need to make 6 figures, this and that. That sounds like a rhetoric that's more of American rhetoric.
for sure.
Down here, we know not that much people are making on the books over 100,000, right? So it's not as likely to deal with a guy like that or deal with like big ballers.
Yeah.
So the point of the matter, I think, is just the rhetoric outside is that we all have to go for these higher level people, individuals. Like you said, we're all average people at the end of the day. But now with dating, there's ranking. There's ranking. And we see it because when you're on a dating app, you know what you can get. Yeah. You know what you can get.
You know, that's
well,
interesting.
You think you know. You think you know.
You know to an extent what you can get with what you've gotten. That's what you have to judge it off of.
For me personally, I honestly do not use dating apps.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can't ever say that I've ever used a dating app.
Okay.
I mean, Instagram, I don't know if you would call that a dating app.
That's a dating app. If people hit you,
it's in a sense of,
have you ever met with somebody from just Instagram DMs?
Yeah, I've met. I've met somebody that. Then
that
I've met
can be
Instagram,
like, so then people consider Instagram a dating app.
Fair enough. So I can say that. But in terms of like the dating apps, I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on this because, again, when I was hosting a show, we had talked a lot about dating in Toronto specifically, and they had a lot to say. I think a lot of the men came and shared a lot of their opinions, but I'd love to hear from you two specifically. Like, what are your thoughts around women in Toronto specifically?
Well, the first thing I wanted to answer was the other question you were saying, where guys had, we have more options, and you're saying like we're more, the harsher, like what parts you thought was harsh on men, and when you're like, oh yeah, you know, when you guys talk about women, if they have kids, they're out. If they have 1 or 2 bodies, they're out of there. When they're at a certain age, they're out of there. Well, the reason for why men become that picky, because you have to understand that came over time, that came over experience, and that also came through the pickiness of women and how they pick their men. So then men started looking at it like, wait, hold on. They have a specific criteria of what kind of man that specific woman wants, right? So then men started looking at, so if they have their criteria, why can't we have ours?
Yes, King, of
right?
course, of
So
course.
then that's when that came into play,
Right.
and then they're looking at what would be considered as a liability. That a woman having 1 or 2 kids cannot help the individual in no circumstances. Absolutely none. 1, that's not their DNA. 2, they're gonna have to pay into that child and their upbringing. And 3, they have no. They have the role of a father, but they're not really their father, and they also can't do what a
biological father
would do to that child, because the woman would say, that's my child. You can't do whatever you want because it's my child. And don't make sure to emphasize that part, right? So that already becomes problematic, which is a problem that men don't want to deal with. Right. So that's why they don't want to go after the single mother.
I wanted to talk about just that point of the single mother, because then if we flip it, so a guy has a child, and then you're like, okay, maybe women are more willing to put up with a guy with a child, but you have to look, or even if they weren't willing, like, it really doesn't matter, because when a woman comes into a guy's life and he has a child, the woman doesn't automatically assume a role of trying to be the mother. And wait, hold on. The reason I say this, there's gonna be scenarios where you have both sides.
Yeah, I mean,
so
nothing, unless he's a deadbeat.
Yeah, nothing.
Let's just put it out there.
Nothing's absolute. But what I'm saying is, in many scenarios, I'll speak anecdotally because we can't speak generally. In many scenarios that I've seen, you know, when you're dating a woman or something like that, there's no pressure on the woman to pay towards the child. I'd say the pressure. Okay. There's not that pressure for a woman to have the expectation when she comes into this situation. I have a kid, so you're gonna have to like probably help out a little bit or
might
have
have to
some
pay.
understanding of that. And not to say every woman's gonna expect the guy to pay bills.
Right, right,
She
of
might
course.
have
But
a good
it's the
situation,
understanding. I
but
understand
still
what
the
you're saying.
understanding is eventually
Yes.
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
gonna have to take over some of these bills. You have to be
Yes.
comfortable taking over the bills, and the woman will tell you to the depth, you don't need to take care of my child. I got it covered. It's like, I know you got it covered, but you still want the help,
Right.
and you still expect the help. It's goes unsaid. Like
Yes.
we
But
know
on the other
that.
end of that, like if a man has a child and he's in that child's life the way he needs to be in that child's life,
Yeah,
and he has a girlfriend,
Yeah.
or a woman, a wife. By maybe the wife is not. I mean, the woman is not going to be. There's not going to be the pressure for her to contribute financially, but there's going to be the pressure for her to contribute in other ways, right?
yes,
In-
emotionally.
Yeah, exactly.
There's gonna be those type of
Right,
factors that
so
that
it's-
come in.
right.
But again, I think in those scenarios, women are more open minded when it comes to men with children than men are with women that have
For sure,
children.
for sure.
It's a difference. They see it very much differently. Let's just say where a woman that sees a guy with a child, she's not really gonna judge it if he has a good relationship with the kid. She's not going to judge it maybe as harshly as say a guy would, because he would maybe judge the fact of this guy coming back in the relationship and stuff like that, maybe a little more jealous, maybe a little more insecure, who knows. But men have a different mentality when it comes to dealing with women with children than women have dealing with men with children.
And also, the woman, there could be a potential chance that she can't have children, which won't make it a big
Or
deal.
doesn't want to have
or doesn't
children.
want to have children,
Yes.
which won't make it a big deal.
Right.
Whereas for a man, he has a good range of when he can have a child. Men are having children at 70, like, or 60 something, and they're still able to have children in that sense. And then that brings me back to the other question you mentioned, where it comes to where guys don't want a woman at a certain age bracket, like that certain age range. And the reason for that is because they're looking at the fertility.
That's
Right.
to me, that's obvious.
This is a very
biological.
obvious one.
Okay.
This is
There's
where
no arguments
yeah,
here.
this one is about. This is not necessarily about the age of a woman, because a
Yes.
woman can look beautiful at a certain
gorgeous.
age. She can look gorgeous, but when you can't bear children and a certain amount of children that the man wants, that becomes problematic, because now they're gonna be like, well, I could always go for a younger woman, and then I can have kids. I can have first of all, I have a longer duration of, like, I'm not pressured to marriage at a certain age, because women do get pushy when they're in a certain age.
course, yeah.
They're pushy.
Well,
they're like,
have to get done.
Yes, it needs to get done now. So what's going on with that?
That's the thing. So you don't have time to spare.
Yeah, we've been together for approximately 1 year and a half. So where's that marriage proposal? And they'll try and do the hints and this and that.
So it's a lot more
it's a lot
pushy at that
pushy
point, and the guys
behavior.
feel that.
Yeah,
can
they feel that
They
pressure.
feel that
And then when
pressure.
you're with a younger woman, you have more time to really prepare and set things up
Right.
and be like, okay, I'm ready for a marriage, and
Absolutely.
then I'm ready for the kids that are coming with it. You know what I mean? So that's why men will defer from the older women and they'll go to a younger group of women, because they just have more time, especially if they're still trying to develop themselves
Right.
in general.
Of course. I mean, I just want to
Okay.
be clear that
Yeah.
I think that we've all subscribed to this notion, this narrative that older women, like a woman past a certain age,
Yeah.
is not able to get pregnant, and
This
like
is
think that-
scientifically proven.
It's like women.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's a large
Yeah.
window where we think that it's this window, but it's really there's a large window of time for a woman to be able to
Do
get
men
pregnant.
want to take that chance?
That's
is the
what
I
it
understand
comes down
that.
to,
But
yeah.
do men want to take that chance? But then when you said there's no arguments on this is the interesting thing about.
For the biological standpoint, what I'm saying is you can't convince somebody that believes that in those statistics of the biology behind it. That's
Of
what I
course.
mean.
It's
So
not
if they just
behind
look at,
the biology about it. What I'm saying
well,
is
I'm
that
just saying the science behind
Yeah,
it,
of
right? If they
course, of
look, if you go
course.
to a doctor, right? So
Yeah.
say as a woman, you go to a doctor and you say, is my chances better at getting pregnant at 30 or 40? They're going to tell you, of course, 30.
Of
Oh,
course.
35 to 40.
Of
Oh, of
course.
course, 35.
Yeah.
So every age younger is better, typically,
For
when
sure,
it comes
for
to
sure.
fertility and pregnancy and eggs. So regardless of the matter of you being able to get pregnant,
Right.
the chances have dropped already significantly by the age of 30.
Yeah.
So that can't be ignored because that's scientific.
For sure, and I think that's clear, and I think that's very self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that, well, I've heard it too. It's like when it comes to this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
it's like when it comes to these conversations, period, about love, sex, dating, relationships,
Yeah.
I notice it's like it's contradictory, or like it's people say one thing and then it's can also say the other. So it's like on one hand, I've heard in this conversation about older women not like after a certain age not having kids. I've heard that it's a good like some people say that men don't want women who have kids, right? And then on the other end of that, you're saying that if she doesn't have kids by a certain age, then there's something wrong. So do you understand where that's kind of contradictory or like two-sided?
So what's happening there is that you're getting opinions from different people, right? So you're gonna get some people that are gonna say one thing, and then you got other people that are gonna say another thing. They're like, wait, why did they say this and they said that? It's like there's always an excuse. So for example, if we go back to the older women conversation, there's many reasons why a person would choose a younger woman over.
Yeah, and we've established those reasons.
Right?
I don't think we have to go back to that.
No. I'm not going back to.
Yeah. No, 'cause I thought you were gonna go back to them. Like, okay. I think you've established that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You know, I'm embarrassed too much. Like, take it easy on the older ladies. But no. Okay. And again, even again, the fact of the matter, it sucks because it's almost like being short and tall. Right, like when a person's listen, because if a person's
the other part of that in there, we have to add the other part of that in there.
Which is that?
What?
You're talking about when women are talking about his height.
Yeah.
Talking about also.
No. The reason I brought the short and tall thing is like because when I'm describing ladies, I'm saying old and young, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's offensive. It's just almost like a tall guy saying like, "Oh, you're not," or a woman saying like. He's short. He's not 6 feet tall. It's like, well, I'm not short. It's just I'm not tall. Like, but it is only tall and short. It's only old and young. So when we say like a woman that's in her 30s, if we say older woman, it's like, oh, older. Well, I'm not that old. I still have a chance, like you said, a chance at pregnancy and stuff like that. If we're talking older, you may be talking 50 when I have like no chance. But if I still have a chance in the field, like I don't want to be categorized as older and younger. And I think that's the problem that a lot of women face because we have these type of obviously labels. So if I date a chick at a certain age, people are going to consider her an older woman. And if I date a girl at a younger age, they're going to say younger woman. And women, like you can have whether older women, like people that are experienced, I'm talking about like people in their 50s and stuff like that. Sometimes they will see, you know, their son or something like that. And I like to ask this question to a lot of, you know, women because it's easy when the woman's in that position for her to be like, oh, why do guys judge age and why do they judge if you have a kid and this and that? But we always ask the question to the women. It's like, well, if you had a son and your son was dating certain women and he had certain options and there's a woman that already had a kid by somebody, there's a woman that's older, say, than he is, or there's a woman that's slightly younger than him, doesn't have children, stuff like that. Of course, your logic would tell you pick that one because that would be the cleanest slate to you, just generally speaking. So we have a general idea of what's good and what's bad. Not to say that those other options are the worst options, but those are secondary options. We have to be honest with ourselves. It's just like women going for certain guys that have a child as well. Like these are sometimes secondary options. It's not they're ideal to deal with somebody with a kid. It's not an ideal. It's not what they grew up thinking. So they had to alter their thinking to even be in that relationship. So I think, the idea of men being harsh or even sometimes women being harsh is like, that's just how the society is because we're picking out the primary decisions. Then when that doesn't work, now we're on the secondary decision. At the end of the day, the people that fall in those categories, whether we like it or not, these are not the prime decisions. These are not you can value yourself as much as you want. You can feel like I'm successful. I've done this. I've done that. You're high value to yourself. Yes, absolutely. Maybe to your peers and everybody else. But guess what? On the sexual marketplace, you're not as valuable as you think because you're successful and because you're older and experienced or whatever.
Okay, yeah. And so you're saying a woman who is older. What's older? And like you're saying that this woman who is whatever.
Older is relative to your age.
Yeah.
Like it'd be relative to your age in terms of older. Like obviously, if I was if I was 50 dating a 35-year-old, like she'd be young. So it'd be relative to your age.
Right.
So if we're talking older, I'd have to be relative to what my age would be. So obviously, anyone older than me would be older. Like if you're older than me, you're older. If you're my age, you're kind of like, you're
Sitting
at
in
the
between,
cusp.
yeah,
You're at the cusp.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
You're at the cusp.
Fair
You're
enough.
at the
Okay. Well, it
cusp.
comes down to it. At the end of the day, I think everybody dating is very subjective.
Absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean?
100%.
You go for what you want,
Yeah.
and everything else can go to the side. And yeah, that's what it is, right?
Do you think there should be parameters to dating? Do you think that there should be rules, and when you go into a situation, you should have like what you're looking for? There should be like a planned dating,
I
or
think-
do you just kind of go in there
Winging it.
and you're winging it?
No, I think absolutely. I think you should
we're
know.
throwing Hail Marys.
I'm
out
just
here.
hoping for the best. No. I think that you should definitely have an understanding, a basic understanding of what it is you want out of a relationship, or like you want to bring to the relationship, and what you want in life. Like just knowing what you want. So knowing what boundaries that you have. You know, what are your deal breakers? Knowing some things that you want to do, like with your partner, like in terms of like building and moving forward, having an understanding of those things. Because when you have an understanding of those things, someone who comes and it's outside of that, then you're able to easily weed through that, right?
But you said everything of what you have. Like you never said anything about the person.
What do you mean? Clarify?
Like
Sorry.
understanding of what the person wants. You said everything of what you understanding what you want and what you need and what.
Yeah,
But I'm
because
saying
you're a person. You're gonna go into the dating scene. You can only have an understanding of what you.
no.
want,
You have
right?
to you have to have an understanding of what they want. That's the thing
But
we
that's the
mess up.
subjective part.
No, but it's
No, but-
interdependent, right?
Yeah,
What-
but you can't go into a situation knowing what somebody wants, right? That's when you go through, you have the conversations, you go through different situations, and then that's when you have an understanding of exactly what this person wants, right?
But what I'm saying is, if you're intentionally dating, right, you ask the questions of what the person is looking for,
course,
not
of
what
course.
you don't just tell them necessarily what you're looking
No, of
for.
course, I didn't
You try and
say-
figure
yeah.
out what they're what can they
course.
bring to, or what are they looking for? So whether you even fit with them, because a lot of the times you're saying what you want, but the guy can provide you what you want.
Not
But
you just
that might
wanna
not
get
be
what you want.
enough.
I'm just saying that you have to have an idea of what you want, right?
How do you
So-
know what you want?
Just knowing like what you want out of life. So just knowing like, you know what, I don't want somebody who maybe has a criminal past. Maybe I don't want somebody who works in a certain profession. Maybe I want someone who is goal oriented. So knowing those type of things, like you understand. So again, like I said, so when you're going into the situation, you know what you want, and then you can have those conversations about what that person wants, and you can kind of collectively see if it's going to work for you, for both of you.
Okay. See, me, it's interesting when it comes to relationships, because even with that, like, you know, knowing what you want, and yes, that you need to have a basic, broad view of what you want.
Yeah,
But I don't think you're gonna get everything you want off the beginning, or you know, you're not gonna get everything you want, and that's the issue here too with
That's a good
just
point.
going after everything you want, because who's governing what you want? You want a 6'5" with, and there's a funny thing online is like 6'5", trust fund, blue eyes, whatever. Like, yeah, it's like.
Yeah, you
I
never
think
seen
it's
that one?
6'6".
Yeah.
It's 6'5", 6.
No, there's a
No,
meme where it's like,
okay.
I want him 6'5", like trust fund,
Oh, excuse
bank
me.
this. and-
Excuse me. Okay,
Like it was
well,
just
I
like
didn't see that
it's
meme. I didn't see
ridiculous.
that
It's
one. Okay,
ridiculous. But they made a
brings me to that
remix of it,
point.
and it's just a funny meme. Yeah.
Brings me to that point about a list, because honestly, like there was a point where I had a list, right?
Yes.
Because like I said, you have to understand what you want out of a relationship, and what you want as a person. So I created this list. Like this is like the ultimate man. These are all the things that I would put on the list. As the time went by, as the years gone on, I realized, you know what? It's like one or two things going to happen. Either I'm going to try to fit this person into these things on this list, or they're not going to match up to the things on the list, and I'm just going to it's a done deal. Do you understand? When it can't be so black and white, I think, like I said, you should have a basic understanding of what you want, but having a whole list of like all the different things, like he has to be 6 foot, he has to be this, he has to be that. I don't think that's realistic.
But where do you think that came from? Like, why women have this idea? Like, you just knowing women, why do you think women go after certain guys? Like, let's just say based on looks. Like, like say the look situation. 'Cause a lot of women date guys based on their looks. What do you
It's
think?
social media. Honestly,
You
I think
think so?
it came from social media, and wherever it started, I think that a lot of our Canadian culture we copy from American culture ultimately. So I think that was a large conversation that was what's happening in America. Like you said, the man has to be 6'6", right? And six makes six figures, all those different things. Where like in here, that's not so much of the conversation. It's not as accessible as of a conversation, right?
No, not realistic.
So again, I think that the women heard those kind of that rhetoric that's going around, that narrative, and as women, as people, even not just as women, because as men too,
we overestimate too certain chicks we want.
Exactly. So you get this narrative, and then now this narrative is what you're living with, and you're trying to live up to this narrative when ultimately it's not realistic. And like that's why I go back to the point of dating is so subjective. So it's best to understand yourself as a person and understand what you want, and then you can go into a playing field a little bit better.
But with the comparison of like everybody, because since like you said, you never been on dating app, but a lot of people are doing this, you know, in our generation, and just with the amount of options and the illusion of options, I'd say, because you seem like you have a lot of options, right? There's so many people on the apps, so many likes and so many messages, so many DMs, and when it comes down to that point, you can kind of pick and choose. Like, say for example, if I'm going off attraction, like as a guy, and I'm basing my matches or whoever I'm trying to link up with based on attraction, I'm going, okay, I matched this attractive girl. Okay, well, another better one. And then, okay, let me message that. Oh, better. Oh, and then I keep jumping ship to whatever the best is. And then same thing for a woman. She goes on and it's like, okay, this guy's 5'10". Oh, fuck, 6'2" and 6'5". Oh, damn, he played overseas basketball. Yeah. Oh, he's a jet pilot. Like then they start seeing so much shit. And it's like a candy store where it's like, there's so much option. Which candy is the best candy here? Like, how do you supposed to know if there's 100 candies and you never tried them all? You're trying to figure out which is the best. And I think this is where people fumble the ball, because there's lots of options right in front of you. But the fact of the matter is you keep deflecting from one to the other, because you start looking at the deficiencies of that person. So say you see one guy that's suitable and it's like, oh, there's a deficiency there, but there's another guy that looks slightly better. Let's see what his thing is. Oh, well, he's not making that much. Well, then there's this guy, he's making a lot, but he's not that tall. So you keep having this like problem with every single person. And realistically, are you going to get exactly what you want of the dating field? And that's why, you know, just having this conversation, do people believe that the person that they're going to be with is their ideal person, or is it just a person that they're willing to develop and work with? I think we want we all want an ideal person that we dreamt of, and we wake up and have butterflies in our stomach. But is it more realistic just to deal with somebody and develop with them without the expectations of them having this and doing this and looking like that? Or do we have to have the ideal for it to work?
I think that's such a good question, and I think that's something that I've kind of been going back and forth with about, like, in terms of getting into a relationship, like, should our core values align? Like, is that really important for our core values to align, or should I just, like, even if some of them don't match, this person is nice, whatever, they're good looking, let me just like go with it and go with the flow and see how it goes, right? But then we get into those situations that we talked about where now you dated this person, it doesn't work out for whatever reason. So I think it goes back to, like, I think that honestly, when it comes back to it, I think you do have to align on some core values, because if you don't align on those core values, you're always going to be coming against each other. Yes,
well, not core values I'm talking about. So core values, I'd be speaking then towards, like, if your core values match, but that person's not your ideal. Like, that's why I said, what's more important? You being with the ideal person that you want to be with, which means looks, finances, external things that obviously that you like. You want him to look good. You want him to have good genetics. You want him to have good health. You want him to have a good job. You want him to live a good life, maybe be religious, and those things, those ideals that you have, the perfect man you've written up on a piece of paper. Or are people putting themselves in situations where every single deficiency is the reason why these relationships aren't working? Does the ideal make, like, if you have the ideal man, do you think women actually believe if they were with the ideal man that they constructed, that would be a perfect match for them? Or is it sometimes not necessarily a perfect match that makes the most sense relationship wise?
Again,
because ideal is the perfect match. So if you get with the ideal person, that means he hits every marker that you've had, like That's your
then
ideal.
That's perfect, right? Isn't that a
Yeah,
perfect
so that your
situation?
ideal,
So
yeah,
it's perfect.
ideal matches your perfect
Right.
situation. She's
So versus
this, she's
what?
that.
So you say
Versus-
ideal person versus what?
So ideal versus somebody that's not ideal, maybe not necessarily the best looking or the best looking you could get, not the richest you could get, but has the core values you have, you know, works with you, is building themselves, you know, a responsible person, and those type of things.
Well, me as an average person, absolutely. Like I'm looking for someone who has the core values, and I'm not necessarily looking for someone who's good looking and 6 foot tall and makes a
Yes.
bunch of money and all
But
those
why do you
different
think the
things.
ideals seem to be more prominent in dating?
I think it just goes back to that rhetoric and that narrative that's just been passed around since Kevin Samuels. I think he opened up the conversation. I think people have been having this conversation long before Kevin and the long after Kevin. But yeah, it just goes back to that narrative and that ideal. You know, like in society, we're all programmed to a certain ideal. So because that ideal exists, we're all trying to conform into that thing with, you know, instead of just
Yes,
being
but
our
I think,
authentic selves.
but here's my thing. I think women believe more in that ideal than men, because men don't believe in those ideals, because they understand, for example, if I ever wanted a chance to get Kim Kardashian, I know what I'd have to be in life. I know what level of man I'd have to be. I wouldn't be a regular guy picking her up, right? So you know where your level is and what you should be shooting for as a man. I'll tell you straight up. Certain guys shoot for the stars, but those guys,
Yeah, of course.
delusion is delusion.
Yeah.
We can't cure
The
delusion.
world shows them really fast what
Who and
the
what they
reality
are.
is.
And
Yeah.
so a guy is not going to be like, yes, they have an ideal of the good looking woman they want, but they're not going to sit there and be like, this girl's going to come my way. They're just going to be like, you know what? I have an ideal woman of what I want, but you know what? I'm going to take who I can if they're willing to work with me. So they're not going to be so gung-ho. A lot of guys say they don't want a 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 woman. They want a maybe a little bit less or a little bit slightly above average, 6, 7 range in terms of looks, because they don't need the woman to be drop dead gorgeous in order for her to be with them. You see what I'm saying? They don't put that cap on certain women. Most caps that men put on women would be age, children, and promiscuity. Those are the biggest
There's
ones.
an aspect of dating that's happening right now where like women have to look a certain way. Do you know what I mean?
For who?
For the dating scene to be acceptable within the dating scene. I go back to this like, okay, like
That's to
if a
seek
woman-
attention.
if-
I don't know, like
no, let's break this down a little bit. So if a woman, like if I showed up here today, just like completely natural, that would be a different story than the way I look right now. Do you
Yes,
understand?
absolutely.
So it's like men, you're saying that men can take women as whatever they are, but that's not the truth.
okay.
Men are going for women who look a certain way, right? That's
Hold on.
That's the certain look is popular. That's what's in.
But who?
All the men
but
are trying
who
to get
made
the
it
women that-
popular?
Listen, I don't know who.
A
I don't know who
man.
the gate, I don't know.
No,
who-
think about
I
it.
don't know.
A man never told
I
a
don't
woman
know.
to go put certain things in her hair,
I don't know.
put eyelashes, to put this
listen,
and that.
It's one of those situations where it's like, did the chicken hatch? Did the chicken come before the egg, or
Yes.
did the egg come before the chicken?
Okay.
It's like either which way we spin it. It's like, was it the men who put this idea in women's head that said, oh, you know what, this is attractive, so now I'm going to do this to attract men, or was it the women who said, you know what, I'm trying to get men. This is what I think they think is attractive.
But they used
you
to
know what I'm
put-
trying to say, like which.
Okay, like,
I think we can go back and
Yeah,
forth
but here's
all
the
day
thing.
on
You
that
know what
one.
men used to do before, like, say, acting wise?
Yeah.
They wouldn't have women act. They would put makeup on men and have men dress up like women. Like womenly,
That's
right?
where drag came from.
That's where drag and stuff comes from. They
Definitely
never
comes
have
from.
women like in that realm because they're like, we'll forget about it. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain products that men created to enhance women's beauty.
I think everything
and
that
stuff like
heels
that.
were created by a man. I'm pretty sure. I think the bra was also created by a man.
Yes, there's a lot of
I
things
believe
that
there's-
created by men that make them look
Yeah.
attractive. But you have to understand, in different societies, it's different too, right? Like, if in our society, if everyone had short hair and that was acceptable, women can change the look all the time. For example, BBLs started becoming a big thing.
So that's
well,
what I'm
who
talking
made people
about,
get BBLs?
Well,
Like,
Again, it
you know
goes
what it
back to
is?
like who
You know what it
did
is?
that? I don't know. Was it you guys saying you
who
liked
did
it?
it?
Was it you guys
Their
swiping it and
doctor went and
enjoying
did it.
Or was
Well,
it,
I'll say this
Or
much.
like who was it? I
It's,
don't know.
We live in a consumer industry where like consumerism is the thing of the day, where they need people to constantly buy, like buy makeup, buy
Exactly.
You know, so in order, so they have
This
to
is
keep
mass
adding-
marketing,
this is
yeah.
mass marketing. So they have to keep adding stuff to the markets. Like, when was lashes a thing? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
guys
Lashes.
That's a good point.
guys
If you
didn't,
look like
like,
10
back in
years
the day,
ago,
like,
lashes
when
wasn't
did
a big
that-
thing.
when
Like
did that-
eyelash techs and stuff. Like
Like,
that
But I guess for
wasn't.
stars and stuff they had.
Yes,
yeah,
makeup
for us
artists,
regular
but not
people,
regular,
but that was
no.
irregular.
Yeah,
But then it's
okay,
like,
fair
well,
enough.
now it's like they kind of slowly rolled that into the market and said, this is what beauty looks like now, right? And
Yes,
like for everything.
I think it's
and-
more marketing than the men that
Yes.
have decided on what. Because like even with certain stuff, like women get microblading, they get this. Men don't know what that is unless
we
they have
have
a
no
mother
idea.
or.
They don't know what it is, but I can tell you right now, going back to the point that I was
Yeah.
making, they know when it's not.
No.
Like I said, and I like, you know what? This is bringing a thing to my mind that
I know what you're saying, but it depends on how naturally how you look
I'm actually
naturally.
gonna do some scientific
It
research.
depends on how you
some,
look
like-
naturally.
no, because honestly, yeah, because
It
like
depends.
I said, yeah, you're right. That's a good point. It
Depends.
depends, right? But again, it just goes back to that, right? You're saying the men are saying like, you know, we take women as they are, like we want them to be natural, we want them to be this. It's like, if you were to see a natural woman on the street, like you're not looking at her, you're not talking to her. you're
Oh
walking
my
right
God!
past
Where's
her.
the confidence?
think-
Where's the
So
confidence?
my
I'm
thing
telling you,
is-
I'm telling you. No,
But
no, just
where's
by,
the confidence?
I don't know.
I
I'm
think
just
women
telling you
miscon-
by the fact that like a woman like
Say-
it's
say
a different
straight
look.
women.
I think
no,
you
no,
misconstrued
period. No,
what-
I mean period.
Well, you have to
Like,
do it
a
yourself.
natural woman. No, I mean I'm not talking about me. Come on, sir.
No, we're not saying
Yeah,
you.
but
But I'm
Uh,
saying,
we're saying like
any woman walking down the street in her natural. I mean, like
But
her
we
hair
see
just
this- okay.
out, no lashes,
Listen.
no
But what
drawn
I'm saying-
eyebrows, just completely
I think
natural.
We see women like
I'm
this,
trying to say,
though.
I think
Yeah, in
And
your
they look
regular
good.
life.
I think
yeah.
women-
But they
Like,
look good,
to
some of them.
approach her, to like say like, you know what, hey, you look good. I want to take you on a date.
Absolutely. If it depends
No, I'm
what
saying-
scenario you're in. So we're in like say a run club. People are in the makeup in those type of
Okay.
clubs.
And they'll still get picked
and
up.
they still get picked up.
Fair
So it
That's a
depends.
natural state.
It depends. That's what I mean. If you're in an environment like a club or party, yes, the expectation is that your hair's done. You're not.
So these
the
things you like.
expectation.
You guys do.
But that
guys
doesn't mean the
like these things.
expectation
They
every
look-
single
they look
place.
nice on women, right?
Of
You guys
course,
enjoy
but-
seeing women.
No, but
polish
Absolutely.
up,
at
right?
the
Absolutely.
same time, we can see them in the gym or we can see them at a run club. That doesn't diminish their beauty.
And we
If they're
don't want to
beautiful,
see
they're
a big
beautiful.
difference from
Exactly.
going out and going to
Fair
the
enough.
gym. You can't
enough.
fool us
Fair
now.
enough.
This can be a catfish, and
Fair enough.
that happens a lot of times.
Yes.
And even though you're mentioning that, it's
Okay,
like,
no, that's
yeah,
a good
but
point.
do you really look like when we strip you down? Because I've been with women that have been stripped down, and everything is out there, and I didn't know necessarily what was real, what was fake.
Jeez. Well, no. You're,
And then I
it's a good
seen
point.
it, and I kind of was like, "What happened?" But I have to accept it. I just have to sit there and be like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess you got done up, and you don't really look like that, though." So it's a hard pill to swallow, but men will swallow that pill if it comes down to it. But don't I say if you do makeup, don't do it egregiously. Do it something more naturally looking
Okay.
that your natural look doesn't deviate too much.
Yeah, well, some girls just love. They're like makeup artists. They love to play.
Yeah,
They're artists.
yeah.
They just like to do different things with their look, right?
You can have
So-
fun with it too.
I do want to conclude
Yes,
this
sir.
podcast. I think this was a great conversation. I think it was great back and forth.
Yes, sir.
We've learned a lot of things. Do you have any concluding statements and what you want to say to the women or the fellas and
Yeah, a little
your
advice.
thoughts of even the
dating-wise,
podcast and coming out
podcast.
here and having
Final
a conversation
thoughts.
with it.
Yes.
Yeah, final thoughts on that.
You know what? This has been a great conversation. I always enjoy having these conversations, especially with men, to hear the men's perspective.
Yes.
I think it's interesting. That men and women are kind of saying the same thing in different ways. And that's one thing that I'm coming to realize. The more and more I have these conversations, and I think if men and women take the time to actually listen to each other a little bit more, it wouldn't be so much tension. And I think I leave it at that. Take the time to actually listen to understand, right? Listen to understand instead of to respond. And again, going back to dating,
Yes.
knowing what you want is so important because dating is so subjective, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
different for every person. What works for you might not work for someone else. So again, just know what you
Last thing is the Toronto dating scene trash.
want. On that, you know what? I'm going to leave it at
Couldn't say it, fellas. You couldn't say it.
The
She said
Toronto
it perspective
dating
based.
scene.
Remember,
the
guys,
Toronto dating scene
it's what you make it.
is what you make it.
There we go,
There you
fellas.
go.
You're not going to
Nah,
get an answer. They never want to tell you the truth.
Nah.
Say it like it is.
Say it like it is.
This is Far From Normal
Yeah, I
podcast.
already know.
And we are out.
Deuces.
Where you make my